like to call this Thursday, January 14th meeting of the Tacoma School District Board of Directors to order. Would the General Counsel please call the roll?
Certainly. President Cobb?
Here.
Director Bombright?
Here.
Director Leon?
Here.
Director Keating?
Here.
Director Strozer?
Here.
Student Representative Hill?
Here.
Representative Esmond?
Here.
Representative Yee?
And I think Student Representative Pearson is also here.
Okay. Student Representative Pearson?
Here.
Okay. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Item number 3, adoption of agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
I so move. Adoption of the agenda.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions about or comments about the agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting the agenda say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is adopted. Item number 4, members of the public wishing to address the board. We have a couple of people who have elected to give comments live tonight, so I'll pause while we get them into the meeting.
Okay, we've got 3 of the 4. I am not seeing one of them yet, but hopefully she'll jump on soon.
Okay, thank you. So just as a note to our alternative protocols, school board members encourage public participation. Your civil input is appreciated. If you'd like to address the school board during a virtual meeting held under the proclamation by the governor amending Proclamation 20-0, 20-28 Open Public Meetings Act and Public Records Act, you have 2 options. And the options generally, the instructions are listed on our agendas and are available on the website, but you have 2 options to participate. 1, you can sign up 24 hours in advance and give public comment live at the board meeting. And then the second option is to submit comment in writing. 2, we ask that you submit that 24 hours in advance of the meeting so that we can get those comments attached to the agenda and so that board members have a chance to review them before we start. So tonight we have 3, potentially 4 members of the community who'd like to give public comment. You'll each have 3 minutes to speak, and there's a counter that you should see. If you can't, please let us know. But it'll count down and let you know when you have 1 minute left, and then we'll stop you when you reach your 3 minutes time. So Superintendent Santorno, will you please call the names of the people who we have for comment tonight? Oh, you're muted, Superintendent Santorno.
I apologize. But the first speaker is Mr. Lane Alfonso. He's speaking regarding student athletic participation in high school sports. Mr. Alfonso.
All right. Good evening, and thank you for allowing me this opportunity to make public comment. My name is Lane Alfonso. I have 2 juniors attending Stadium High School, and I'm an active member of the Stadium Booster Club. In the past 2 weeks, I've spoken with Shannon Marshall, principal of Stadium High School, James Neal, District Athletic Director, my board member representative, Lisa Keaton, and Deputy Superintendent Josh Garcia about starting high school sports and conditioning. I first want to express my genuine appreciation to each of them for returning my calls and emails, making themselves available, and listening to my concerns. Their individual actions reduced the frustration I felt about not knowing what was happening with athletics at Stadium High School and the impacts it has to my kids. They were all professional, understanding, and I have renewed confidence in this board and the district to move forward with high school sports. But I want to emphasize the obvious. We need our students re-engage in sports activities. High school sports is an important outlet for our kids. I'm encouraged to hear that the district and the board are doing everything they can to get high school practices started on February 1st. But I'm asking the board to place a high priority on getting our student athletes back and competing in sports as quickly as possible. Please be innovative in your policy making and use all resources available to address the challenges ahead. Additionally, communicate your intentions often with students, parents, and our community. This will go a long way in reducing our frustration and the spread of misinformation. I want to thank you again for the time tonight and your service to our community.
Thank you. The second speaker, and forgive me if I pronounce your last name incorrectly, Anna, I think it's Anna Gizzi, and she's speaking regarding personal experience with remote learning.
I believe Anna is the one who has not joined the meeting yet.
Okay. All right, so let's go for right now on to our third speaker, Miss Penny Kramer, regarding reopening and safety.
Hi, I'm Penny Kramer, a parent of a second grader scheduled to be in person on February 8th. Welcome to the board, Director Strozier, and thank you to all of you for your service. As the oversight body for TPS, I think you should be aware of the implications of plans made for special education services. I have grave concerns for my child and other students who have IEPs. I searched the TPS website for information on how special services will be provided during the hybrid model, and I could not find any detailed plans. I contacted my child's case manager and the principal at my school. I learned special ed and other pull-out services fall under small group instruction. Pierce County Health Department has guidelines called Facts for Small Groups, and here are the issues that are most concerning and seem unlikely to be resolved in the time we have before reopening. 1, the health department recommends specialists should limit their contacts. Special education staff cannot do this because of laws requiring minutes of service. 2, the health department recommends students do not participate in multiple groups. My son receives services in 4 different groups. 3, the health department guidance for therapy spaces is to open windows if possible. Our Learning Resource Center does not even have a window to open. Currently, my child has 7 different meetings with 3 different adults in addition to his regular classes. During the hybrid, some of his IEP minutes will be fulfilled by staff assigning independent lessons. He has an IEP because he needs targeted adult instruction and he struggles to do work independently. This model will reduce his services to 2 days a week and does not follow his IEP. In the hybrid model, staff providing services for IEPs are meeting with students in both for cohort A and B. This is a huge exposure risk for those staff and the students that they serve. Washington Department of Health recommends school offers in-person instruction in small groups of 15 students or fewer. My child and every student receiving pull-out services will have a dramatically increased exposure to COVID. So will the staff providing them. This is unsafe and does not follow the guidelines. My ask is that we take the time and pause to get this right. The vaccines are right in front of us. We can either ignore the problems and proceed anyway, or we can take a moment to pause and wait for the vaccines to get to staff before more children and educators return to the buildings. We've made it this far in our remote instruction, and while it is not perfect, we all know that, it is functioning, and most importantly, it is safe for our students and for our staff. Why can't we wait just a little bit longer to ensure the safety of every student every day? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Third speaker is Sarah Kim, and she wants to speak regarding the reopening of schools.
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity. I would like TPS to make the responsible decision to postpone the reopening of schools due to concerns for the safety and health of those involved. I taught in person in Texas this fall and have witnessed firsthand that the logistics of a hybrid plan will cause more harm to students, teachers, and student learning than good. I was infected in my very own classroom. I was out of commission for 3 weeks until being able to communicate with my students and am now on disability leave due to the long-lasting debilitating symptoms that are not uncommon. I've been sick for 10 weeks. Due to legal issues with being on leave, I'm not allowed to work, so I can't help with the transition to finding a long-term sub and curriculum items or lesson plans. This has completely ruined the continuity of our learning. I was extremely particular in following all COVID protocol and more. I always wore my mask and face shield, sanitized frequently, fresh pairs of gloves between touching different items. We wiped down our chairs at the beginning of every class. I wiped all other desktops, doors, tables every single period. I provided air purifiers that were running constantly. I broke the rules and cracked open my exit door periodically to allow fresh air circulation. I constantly wiped my phone, watch, keys, glasses, water bottle, always sprayed my shoes after leaving the building every single day. But a classroom involves kids. Kids who, and we can't blame them, act like kids. Kids rub their eyes and touch their face, touch each other, share phones, and need to drink water. Kids who get so excited that their mask falls off while talking or slips and reveals their nose. Kids who touch their mask and pull their mask away from their face or down when they talk. Kids who shout at each other at lunch, projecting their droplets with heightened velocity, unmasked. Not to mention kids who like to rebel and misbehave and blatantly do not wear their mask. Travis County in Texas, where schools have been open, just released that the positivity rate in students is outpacing the communities, ranging from 10 to 27.1%. I understand that in-person education is preferable. It's more engaging, teachers being able to walk around the room and attend to each student individually, group work, lab stations, kids surrounded by other kids who can socialize, field trips, playing an instrument, singing in choir, sports and PE. There are so many reasons, but none of these are allowed right now. In-person learning is not nearly the same as what we know it in our hearts and minds to be. Rather, the forefront is COVID protocol, which will go unfollowed, and COVID anxiety. I lived it. There is no foolproof way to have every single individual following all protocol at all times. As human beings, we need to eat and hydrate during the day, and COVID is an airborne virus that can live in the air for hours. Every individual will be fighting for themselves, but I will be careful does not matter if someone else does not do their part. I am a victim of this. It does not make any sense that gatherings are not permitted and restaurants are closed, but we are rushing to gather groups of individuals inside closed doors where they will be stuck together and breathing the same air for hours per day, and eating lunch. I beg you to help us protect the lives and long-term health of those in our community and keep school remote. If Tacoma decides to move forward with the opening of schools, that will indicate to me that the district board does not care about the health of our students, staff, and families. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Did Anna Gizzy come in, or Jeezy? Anna Jeezy?
She has let me know that she's having technical difficulties, and so she's not going to be able to join the meeting. It's not, her Wi-Fi is not working well.
Okay, thank you. The following members of the public provided a written statement, and so are not appearing in person, but have written a statement. It's attached to your agenda, and the public can see it attached to the agenda too. First person, Blake and Emily Cohn, regarding concerns with the current plan to bring some children back to in-person learning. Number two, Chanel Marshall, status of the TPD SRO contract termination vote. And number three, Wendy DeRay, regarding continue remote learning for now. That's the end of the list of public speakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Arno, and thank you to everyone who submitted comments. Please, again, we encourage you to communicate with us. We read all of your emails and are trying to get responses out quickly to people. But just remember 24 hours in advance so that we can get those attached to the agenda and distributed to members of the board. Thank you. Item number 5, recognition of staff, students, and community. 5.1, recognition of the Tacoma Public Schools Board of Directors for School Board Recognition Month in January 2021.
Our board of directors were reluctant to have their recognition, but we insisted that they be recognized. And so I'm going to just read the background piece. School board directors play a critical role in promoting student learning and achievement by creating a vision, establishing policies and budgets, and setting clear standards of accountability for the school systems they oversee. School board directors contribute hundreds of volunteer hours each year, making decisions aimed at promoting student achievement. School board directors have a multitude of responsibilities, including vision, goal setting, establishing standards for what students should learn, adopting policies and budgets, and working as a team with the administration, teachers, parents, students, and the community to foster a safe and productive learning environment. School directors also serve as champions for public education, advocating on behalf of students and districts in their communities, and with policymakers and legislators at the state and federal levels. In Tacoma, the 5 school board directors are elected to 6-year terms. Board members also set policies that encourage innovative choices so students can find the right schools and programs to be successful. In 2020, the board members updated their 5-year strategic plan and benchmarks that have improved academic performance and closed graduation gaps for the district of nearly 30,000 students. Also in 2020, the board earned a prestigious Board of Directors Award from the Washington State School Directors Association for the 4th time in 5 years. So Governor Jay Inslee has issued a proclamation designating January as School Board Recognition Month in Washington for the state's 295 school districts, and setting the month aside as an excellent time for school staff, students, parents, and the community to thank board members for all the hard work that they have done. So I really ask that our students and parents and community join us in recognizing and thanking this board of directors for their hard work and the countless hours that they spend to provide students with a solid, improving, improving public school education. So again, I'll take the opportunity to thank you for your work. And lots of people think the work that you do is come into this meeting, on Thursday nights, but there's so much behind that. And I just want to tell you how much we appreciate the work you do and the support that you give us to give to the staff so that we can get the work done. Thank you.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Superintendent Santorno. We appreciate the recognition. I will reserve making any further comment, but will ask any members of the board want to acknowledge the recognition. We will item on the agenda, but thank you for pushing us. Item 5.2, recognition of Gold Star Community Partner Award to Tanya Durand, Executive Director of Green Trike.
All right. Can you hear me?
We can.
All right. Thank you. My name is Amanda Scott Thomas, and I appreciate this opportunity as the Director of the Community Partnership Office to come before the superintendent or deputy superintendent, President Cobb, and the rest of the directors to facilitate the Gold Star Community Partner Award. This month is very fitting as Tacoma Whole Child Month recognizes one of our Tacoma Whole Child partners and champions. We know that for Tacoma Public Schools, partnership is a cooperative relationship between students, families, schools, the school district, and the greater Tacoma community. We know partners are committed to supporting students' academic success and success of the whole child. Our partners work with and invest in the education of our children and our youth, whose future in turn will affect the quality of life in the entire Tacoma community. So when it comes to student success, TPS recognizes that schools cannot do it alone. And in recognition of an investment of time, talent, resources for TPS students, families, and staff, the Gold Star Community Partner Award signifies honor and thanks to a community partner who has made a difference by doing what's best for kids. Tonight, we're going to recognize Miss Tanya Duran. For over 27 years, Tanya has been a relentless advocate for early learning, programming, and partnerships that support the whole child. She received her Bachelor of Arts degree in art from the University of Puget Sound. Tanya is also Pierce County's champion of play. She is a visionary leader of the Play to Learn program, the new museum at JBLM, preschools throughout the city of Tacoma. She also spearheads and leads the annual symposium of our youngest citizens, and she's fostered the vision of the flagship Children's Museum. COVID-19 has impacted us all. We have all been challenged to provide essential services needed for our community. We've all struggled to provide in real time support for our learners, our families, and staff. And during this difficult time, Green Trike has not been immune to the challenges of COVID-19. Green Trike and Tanya have been pillars of support for many of our partners. And when creative solutions have been needed, they have stepped up to the plate. Today, Ms. Tanya Durant is known as a regional leader in the early education and in community partnerships. Tanya focuses on helping people and organizations accomplish their goals and fulfill their potential. Her leadership was instrumental in establishing the community's child care response for our first responders. She brought providers, first responders, and the school district together to build a vision that provided access to child care, built functional business plans, and assisted the community in aligning funding resources to provide programming. Her endless dedication to empowerment, performance, and the education for all early child care providers has been a catalyst for a community-wide approach to supporting the whole child. So it's our honor as a Community Partnership Office to acknowledge her publicly and thank her for her leadership, Ms. Durand and her staff of Green Trike, and we recommend this to the Board of Directors. I'm not sure if Ms. Durand is online.
I think she is. I saw her.
I am. I don't know if you'd like me to say something, Amanda. I'm a little humbled, and thank you for those gracious remarks. My goodness. Partnering with Tacoma Public Schools, I would say, is a highlight for Green Trike. You know, if you want bang for your buck, if you really want to see your partnership energy go far, you know, partner with TPS. I mean, I'm just so grateful to the board of directors for taking such a visionary and bold approach to partnership in the community. I'm thankful to Superintendent Santurno, Deputy Superintendent Garcia, for just such welcoming warmth for partners to come in and flex our superpowers and hopefully plug those superpowers in a way that really makes life better for our students and also is a value add for all of those people working so hard to educate our students. So thank you for letting us play with you. It's our favorite thing to do at Green Trike. And here's to many more years of doing some really rich, rewarding work together. So thank you again. Thank you to the board for this honor.
Thank you, Tanya.
I know that a couple members of the board might want to say something just to again thank you for your partnership. But I'll start off by just saying that, and I say this I don't say it all the time, but I say it at least once a year. Usually it comes after going to the National School Board Association meeting. I think we can take for granted the collaborative spirit that we have in Tacoma. We are all surrounded by it and we benefit from it. And I don't think that until we step out of Tacoma and step further in Seattle or Olympia and really go and experience the dynamics in other communities, we can easily take for granted the collaboration and partnerships and like willingness to think about us all that I think have in Tacoma. So I'm telling it, I appreciate the work that you all do at Green Trike. I appreciate the safe and warm community that you've created for our littlest learners. And we just thank you for your continued partnership. I'll pause there and see if any other members of the board have something to say. I'm thinking Director Bond, right?
Yes, well, of course, Green Trike, a bastion of support for early learning and visionary leadership from Tanya and all of the team. And I know this has been, this period of time has been, as Amanda said, hard on Tacoma Public Schools, but it's been also hard on our partners. And so the incredible of heavy lifting that went on behind the scenes to make sure that we had childcare options in place and that children had places to go and trying to create play environments in people's homes and different types of creative, innovative work that Green Trike has done. We're just so incredibly grateful. And you've definitely are a leader in this field in terms of Tanya and the team for the work that you do to partner and to show how to play well together. And we would be less successful if we didn't have you on the team Tacoma. So thank you very much and really appreciate all the work that you do. And please thank all the staff at Green Trike as well.
Any other comments? We don't all have to speak. I'm sure we have the same sentiment to express.
I would like to just acknowledge that I think one of the things out of the pandemic that has come about is the essential need for childcare and those who provide childcare in our community. And I know that they are undervalued. And I just want to echo what has already been said and say thank you so much for providing the programming and partnership that you and Green Trike have for a long time, but also particularly now and since the shutdown in March. I am personally really grateful for all of that effort. And I know that there's never enough acknowledgement for the amount of work that happens behind the scenes. And often the public just will never know what really goes into providing excellent childcare and social emotional play and support for our youngest children in our community. So thank you.
Okay, Thank you again for all that you do, and we appreciate the partnership. So moving on to item number 6, the superintendent's report. 6.1, the whole child month.
So it's it's very great that we're following Tanya and talking about Green Trike, with also talking and celebrating the whole child. I think it's easy to say that Tacoma Public Schools was an early adopter of social emotional learning, and that we have put so much energy and have been a leader across the country in some of the work that's gone into the social emotional learning, and especially the whole child. So this month, the state of Washington and our governor Jay Inslee has proclaimed this as the whole month, the whole child month. So I'm just going to read the proclamation. I'm sorry you had reading things today, but I think this is worthwhile to hear from our governor. Whereas proclamation, whereas each student deserves to be challenged academically, exposed to a comprehensive education that promotes critical thinking and creativity, and prepared for higher education, meaningful employment in our global economy, and lifelong success. And whereas every student deserves to be supported by qualified, caring adults and have access to personalized learning opportunities. And whereas every student deserves to learn about and practice a healthy lifestyle in an environment that is physically and emotionally safe. And whereas every student deserves the opportunity to be actively engaged in, connected to school and the broader community. And whereas, according to the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, most youth in the United States do not get the recommended amount of daily physical activity, and students who lack food and resources for healthy living are less likely to be attentive in school and have higher absenteeism rates, which can lead to lower academic performance. And whereas local, state, and national organizations that provide coordinated education, health, and social services to children and youth in Washington recognize a whole child approach that decreases truancy and disruptive behaviors and improves academic performance and student well-being. Now, therefore, I, Jay Inslee, Governor of the State of Washington, do hereby proclaim January 2021 to be Whole Child Month in Washington, and I encourage all people in our state to join me in this special observance. Signed, the 6th day of January 2021, Governor Jay Inslee. So I think it's important that we get it, SEL, celebrate Whole Child Month. And no, I didn't write that joke. But thank you for all of you, board of directors, and the way you participate and help. And Tanya, if you're still on the line, it's a perfect example of how our partners come and help us address the needs of the whole child.
Yeah. Thank you, Superintendent Zambrano. And I think, too, as we think about beginning to slowly bring students back into buildings, it's an important reminder to focus on the whole child, and making sure that they're feel safe, supported, and cared for, and all of those things before we really hammer home on the academic side of things. Not that that isn't important, but there's a lot of culture building and just social interaction that's going to be important to focus on in these next couple of months. So I think it's a great time for us to lean into our whole child. Item 6.2, COVID-19 updates.
We are just really trying to be diligent and making sure that our public and our board knows about what's going on with COVID-19. We want to correct any misperceptions or inaccurate information. And so we hope our public is willing to tune in and listen to the information that we have, because we want them to be informed about what is really going on with our COVID-19. So I've asked Dr. Garcia to kick it off and talk to us a little bit. You know that one of the things that we've stayed steadfast to is following the state guidelines, and we know they've changed, they've ebbed, they've flowed, and with a research backing and a data component that makes us secure and that we're moving in the right direction. So, Dr. Garcia, will you start off with some of those new state guidance?
Dr. Garcia.
Yes, thank you. I got working there. Tom, can you bring up the PowerPoint? I'm not sure if you got a chance. All right, and the next slide, please. All right, so as the superintendent mentioned, I believe the exact date was like December 16th or December 18th. I think December 16th, the state published new guidelines. And I just wanted to go over 4 bullets with you that's a highlight of these. The Department of Health revised its metrics to inform local decisions. And so these are local decisions around the provisions of in-person learning and the risk of transmission of COVID-19 in school environments. These revisions were based on emerging research and data gathered by state and national officials. So the recommendations are not developed here locally, but by the state based on new evidence. We all have to remember COVID is something that's new for all of us and we're learning. And so it's we shared with you all the way up until right before the Thanksgiving break that we anticipated new guidance would be coming based off of new lessons. These changes include revisions to the COVID-19 incident rates to consider when making decisions about who to prioritize in-person learning for, and further clarification for local leaders should consider test positivity and trends in cases and hospitalizations to inform decisions around in-person learning. The Department of Health defined a maximum small group size of 15 for learning when the disease activity is high, and defined our youngest learners. And so those are some minor tweaks there that hadn't been in there. And when I mean minor tweaks, minor in the scope of the grand recommendations, not in the implications of them. The Department of Health moved away from a decision tree and rather replaced this toolkit, which is available online, now includes 2 checklists that ensures readiness to implement all required Department of Health and safety measures and L&I requirements, and a matrix that summarizes the recommendations for the provisions of in-person learning based on the community metrics. So Tom, if you can go to the next slide, please. So this is what that matrix looks like. And it is different than what we have been up until December 15th. It was, the numbers changed. And so the new high category is 350 cases per 100,000 in the last 14 days category. So anything over 350 would be considered the high category. They did not put an upper limit on that number. In this phase in-person learning in groups of 15 or fewer students for pre-K through grades 5, and those with the highest needs. And what those with the highest needs, they could be at all levels. And so there's that idea that those furthest from educational justice. They ask us all to prioritize pre-K through 3, grades 3, and students in any grade level with disabilities, students living on homelessness, and those furthest from educational justice. And then they say if schools can demonstrate the ability to limit transmission in the school environment, add grades 4 through 5. They mention canceling and postponing most in-person extracurricular activities except for those allowed under the Safe Start and government's proclamation of COVID-19. And that actually was just revised here in January, and you probably have seen some of our communications, but we'll talk about sports a little bit later. The moderate phase is when our county goes from below 350 and anywhere from 350 to 50 cases per 100,000 over the 14 days. In this, we would be prioritizing elementary pre-K through 5 if they're not already receiving this, and then really adding middle schools. And so there isn't a set period of time where you can go through transition. They're asking us to look at that data and monitor that. And then schools can demonstrate the ability to limit transmission in the school environment and add more high school students when case rates are below or about 200 per 100,000. So there's some subtleties in there because students are likely in most school districts to already be in the 15 or less in a class size, which would allow schools all across the state to facilitate small group learning. And then the third phase is cases below 50. And that means basically we're back to the pre-COVID era where we're providing in-person learning for all students. So I'm gonna ask Tom if we can go to the next slide. So here's where we are as a county. We remain over the 350 per 100,000 and remain over the 350 in our 14-day COVID-19 case rates. With the 6-day lag, we are below the 350, but it is important to know we have consistently looked at that number without the 6-day lag. And why that's critical is we're not changing how we're looking at numbers. They're going to remain consistent. The high category means that we can still serve students with the highest needs in small groups or cohorts. So kindergarten students will join our other cohorts that are already on campuses and have been since October, and they will start in small groups. So that means they will be less than 15 or less students. It doesn't mean that they will be up to, or excuse me, all 15 are there. It'll be 15 or less. And we'll stay in that phase and until the numbers change. As I mentioned, we currently already have had small groups of students on campuses, and those will remain in effect. All other students will remain in remote learning until further notice. Next slide, please, Tom. Superintendent Santoro, I think you're going to take a couple of these with me. Okay, so when kindergarten students come back on January decision, folks are asking, so how are you making—
Wait. My mic was muted. I'm so sorry. I
That's
just can't
okay.
get that right. They're gonna say that when I die that her mic was muted.
No,
sorry.
I'll say you're an amazing leader. Go ahead, please, Superintendent.
No, I want to give this part because I had an opportunity this week to try to visit some kindergarten, and I just want to give a shout out to our kindergarten teachers. They are ready, and they have done an incredible job of planning for sequencing and making social distancing. Their rooms are excellent, and so I just want to give a shout out to how ready they are. And so we're going to welcome kindergarten students on January 19th, and the decisions were firmly based on the guidance that we've given. And people ask, well, who is giving you this guidance? And so this is a good slide that says we've got labor and industry that's describing exactly what the cleanliness standards are and what we have to do to make sure that students are safe. Number two, the Department of Health that have given us any other guidance that we need to do and have talked to us about the precautions we need to take, about attestations, about having students, if they come to school and they've got sniffles, about how to get them in a separate room and to take care of them and what that looks like. And so we really feel like we've had excellent guidance about that. The Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction have helped us with number size along with health. Actually, it's hard to list these all separately. They should have a little web in between them because they're all connected. They're talking to each other and they're talking to us. And then also we have, our teacher union worked collaboratively with the district administrators and crafted a memo of understanding that took some time because that group of teachers and the administrators were being thoughtful and taking their time to make sure that they got those, that they got it right and that they were able to really pay attention to what that looked like. So we are really feel secure that we have it right and that we have paid attention to all those different things. Next slide. So we have considered safety and we have looked at it. We have recently our teachers association asked us to show our safety plans. What does our safety plans look like? And those are the procedural elements that say we've paid attention to what we need to do. We have a safety committee that has minutes on site to show that they've met and to show that they've discussed some of the elements that go with each one of those. We have a COVID supervisor on every site of our schools, and their responsibility. I walked in one of the kindergarten rooms, one of the buildings, and you can do your attestation on your own app before you come in, or you can do it once you come in and do it at the building. And I usually do it on my phone before I came in. And I walked in, and this was at Lyon, and Anita Roth, who's the principal and also the COVID supervisor, said, "Show me your attestation." So people are taking this very seriously and making sure that the oversight of their schools are very safe. And then lastly, staffing and supervision. Our HR department has worked tirelessly to make sure that we have this right, that you have an assurance that we have people that are going to watch processes and watch for the masking and watch for making sure that we are socially distanced. And so we feel really good that people are taking it seriously and that they understand that we're dealing with our most important resource, which is our children and our staff. The next slide. So right now we're talking about the hybrid model. We know that these models will ebb and flow and look differently, but we feel very secure right now that the hybrid model, that people know it, that our kindergarten teachers know what they're doing and are ready. I talked to them and asked them about their plans. The teacher, I think her name is Leah, who is at Bryant Elementary, said that she had an engagement box. And that engagement box was to keep kids involved when they weren't in a certain group so that they knew they couldn't get up and just walk around the classroom. So our kindergarten teachers have thought about every single circumstance that could come up. So we'll have a hybrid learning model. We have meal service figured out and making sure that we maintain group sizes and maintain a safe way to deliver our meals. We've got transportation figured out. And the attestations are just one of the few of the things of the precautions that we're taking to make sure our little ones are going to be safe. We have a way, like I said, to make sure that if they start to exhibit symptoms once they get at school, that we'll take care of them. Tom, last slide for me. Next one. So this is about the whole child. This is about social emotional learning. And those first 2 weeks when our kindergartners come to school, we want to make sure that we take care of all those basic elements of the whole child, that we want to pay attention to their social emotional learning, show compassion, care, kindness, understand that, what kind of operations we have to put in place based on the age of the child. And I asked teachers about that, and they know their students because of their remote. And so they feel very clear that when they come into the classroom, they're going to be able to work with them. So Josh, will you finish up?
You bet. Thank you, Superintendent. And Tom, next slide, please. So in regards to the Tacoma Public Schools, this week we were averaging around 3,800 students enrolled in Tacoma Online, and we have been regularly assisting families with their transfer requests. Now, remember, I want to remind all folks is when they selected and we asked folks, did they want a hybrid approach or would they like 100% remote learning? And we asked them to make a commitment to the semester or the trimester in the elementary phase. We have recognized that a lot has changed since that original request was made. And so 3,800 folks have already said, look, I want to stay in remote learning. And that number continues. And we're able to assist those families with their transfers. And so although we call it a wait list, we are not waiting until the trimester for our elementary students. We have some kindergarten families that have been accessing that this week, and we're in the process of processing those transitions. Our average daily attendance is right around 88%, just above that. Want to remind folks, especially at you secondary students and your families, you can work with your classroom teachers and schools on grades and potential extensions if you need them. Really encouraging folks to reach out to their classroom teachers and to their schools if they're struggling with their grades, if they need extra help, or if they need extensions. There's a school board policy that allows teachers the authority to grant extensions already in place, and students have the ability to access that through that local classroom teacher or their school. Our pre-K through 12th grade special ed students will continue in small groups. And so if you are one of our special ed students right now in those small groups, we have been thrilled to have you on our campuses, and we will continue to serve you that until further notice. As we've mentioned, kindergarten students will begin in cohorts, and that's really critical. Our classes will be in cohorts because we are in the high category, and they will start next Tuesday. Families received information this week on their assigned cohorts. If for some reason you did not get information about your contact for your school, or if you have any questions, please contact the school. There's been information that's come out in the Innovator and newsletters around transportation and where your bus routes will be. That has all been distributed, but even if you missed it or it's hard to understand, please reach out to your school and we're here and happy to assist you. We're scheduled to bring our preschool students back in cohorts on the 25th as well. And so the idea there is that those would be students that are also needing to get on campus and see to work in that setting. And so they are scheduled to be on the 25th. And then first and second graders will be the next in the process to return. Those first and second graders will follow a similar pattern to our kindergartners. They'll start off in cohorts in small groups and then expand as our community transmission rate allows. We will be bringing you an update on all other grade levels. We wanted to get and focus our attention and to make sure that the kindergarten students and staff were supported. And so we have secondary folks looking at their plans, what is the revisions that need to be made, and we'll be bringing some regular updates on what that transition looks like. But remember, all other students are in the remote setting at this time. Want to keep on reminding folks that families and students should be monitoring their student grades through Schoology. It's the platform that has the most up-to-date information, and that should help folks. We are continuing with our grade calling and remain in effect through the first semester. And last slide, please, Tom. Just some other fun activities for folks to recognize as well. We continued our pilots with the ELO programming has expanded for some of our elementary sites. This January, right after the holiday break, we started small group optional sports training. The WIA, based on new governor guidance, has made some official decisions. Tacoma's first season of sports practice is scheduled to begin on February 1st. The information is on the website for there. There's a newsletter that's also going back out to families. So athletes, if you're in that fall sports season, please go and start your grade checks, your all the compliance around your physicals. Get there because that's right around the corner, 2 weeks before you start practicing, and we're excited to have you back on campuses. I want to be real transparent too, as well as although we are starting practices, we are not able to start competitions yet. And so that will be made by a league decision when competitions are able to be start. And so we're starting practices. The whole league is in preparation for competitions. But if the numbers in the community transmission don't allow for it, then the league will not support a competition phase. We are actively working with state and county officials on the latest information and planning for both COVID testing still and vaccinations. And so we are still eagerly pursuing, and we've had conversations even as late as today with the health department on what are possibilities, how can we move forward with these possibilities. And, we have deep respect for our health department colleagues and partners. They have changing conditions regularly. They have a supply and demand chain they have to deal with. They have numerous variables, but they have been committed to working with the Tacoma Public Schools to say, what are our options? How can we continue to move forward? And we have some success. We have had some staff have already begun to receive their vaccinations. And so that's a huge celebration, and we're excited. Staff are getting updates on how to access this information and notifications of eligibility. Another round went out late last night, and they continue to go out. And so the latest time and information we get from the health department, we will continue to give staff that are eligible for those vaccinations that information as soon as we get it. And remember, if you're not feeling well, please stay home. We're here to support you, and together we can get through this and continue to support our kids. So that is our update for this evening. Thank you. We'll take any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Superintendent Santorno and Dr. Garcia. I know members of the board have questions, so I'll just call on individuals, starting with Director Bonbright. Do you have questions or comments for?
I do. I think, thank you very much. I think that really helped clarify some confusion that I've been seeing in some letters that have been coming into us. But I still want to talk about a couple things. One came up today, and I can't remember which of the speakers who spoke to us about lunches in the classroom and with the masks off and kids, kind of being excited and then putting their masks back on and staying in the same classroom. What is the thinking around that? I mean, did we think about going into having them go in different times into like the lunchroom in different areas and then coming back to the classroom to keep the classroom more secure? Or what was the thinking around lunch in the classroom?
Yes, so it's a great question, and it's kind of counterintuitive to what we think, right? When we're told to wear masks in there. Remember, each of the classrooms are going to be practicing social distancing, so they're 6 feet away from each other while they're eating in there, and that's within the guidelines. We've asked that question, what about when you take off your mask? And many of us maybe have experienced eating in a restaurant recently, right before the state shut down and now as it reopens. And you see that your booth is 6 feet away from each other, or your table is 6 feet away from each other. And so that is in accordance with the guidelines. It is able to be done there. Each school is developing their own lunch plans. And so as some schools look at that and say, is it a viable option? Can we rotate? Can we use the cafeteria? You might have larger groups in there. But we're also trying to limit how large those sizes are and in there. So there may be 3 or 4 kindergartners in a class, or excuse me, 3 or 4 kindergarten classrooms at a school. But then as you add first and second graders, that expands. And then when you think about secondary. And so we are making sure that, obviously teachers get their duty-free lunch in order to do this and support them. But it is a good way for kids to stay in their cohorts at their elementary schools together and to build some relationships. And they won't be eating at the same table like in the traditional lunch manner that they are. They will, you can still have a dialogue and you can still talk to your buddy, but at the same time, you will be 6 feet away when that takes place.
Well, also, I just wanted to add on to Dr. Garcia. Also, we have to recognize that a lot of our staff are involved in meal preparation for our online learners. So if you were able to bring those students into the actual cafeteria, that will remove them from meal preparation. So it's a combination of a lot of things.
Okay, thanks. And then the other one was about just another point of clarification. I know you've been talking about cohorts and working in cohorts, but in the remote, in the bringing kids back, you didn't mention, cohort A, cohort B. That meant 2 days in school, in the classroom, and then 3 days still remote, correct? I mean, I think that's unclear. So I think starting the 19th, we're having smaller classrooms of kindergartners, but just 2 days a week initially, or are we going 4?
Initially, it'll be 2 days a week. They will be in-person learning. There will be some moments of synchronous learning. Potentially on Wednesdays, there may be synchronous classes that are still on there. And so what you'll see now in a hybrid is truly 3 different kinds of learning that is taking place. And it is connected, right? And so it doesn't mean that there has to be new learning in each one of these. It could be reinforcement of skills. Our Teaching for Learning department has done a marvelous job of putting together resources, simple schedules. And so students will experience moments where they're in-person learning, that 2 days a week, as you've articulated, Dr. Von Bright, especially when they're in cohorts, when they are in cohorts. And then there will be moments of synchronous learning where all students may be online together in a classroom, which is very similar to what they are now. And then there'll be moments of asynchronous learning. And so their schools will develop their schedules and balance that out. Students may, in their asynchronous days, still be working with a specialist during that time. They may have some other things. And so even though that they're designated where it's an asynchronous day, some students will have synchronous learning with other staff members during that time.
You mean coming into school on a Wednesday, you mean?
No, so synchronous learning would be as all of us working together on the computer at the same time. Asynchronous would be as I as an individual would be working remotely by myself, right, under some general guidance and direction.
We should describe too, that cohort is for example, in the kindergarten example, could be, a group of kids from the same class. So A and B are groups of students from the same class, but they're being treated differently on those different, they're not being taught differently, but they're in different groups.
They're being separate.
Yes.
So
yeah.
instead of if you have and let me see if I'm correct with this, but let's say you have the normal classroom, had we started in person, everybody coming in would have been 24 kids. So you would have an A and a B, which would be 12 kids and 12 kids potentially. I mean, there might be one or because of schedule.
It could be different.
So so when we do go back to 4 days a week, the kids would be blended. A and B would be blended to be the full class.
I want to offer a subtle nuance that we all should consider. The school day will be like a school community. And so when we talk about cohort, it is not a cohort in a specific
that makes sense.
classroom. And so there might be times when 2 classrooms are on the recess together. And so the guidance is very clear that it is cohort is A and B. To your same point, Director Bond, right? It's approximately half the kids balance it out. It's not an even 50-50 split. And that's really designed for contact tracing, not contract, contact tracing, and making sure, and that's the way it works. We've learned a lot of lessons from our colleagues all across the state, and even in Pierce County, where schools have reopened. How are they doing it? What does that look like? Some of our principals have gone and seen schools. We've talked to superintendents. How are you organizing these groups? But the general feeling and the methodology is you have about half of your students on one day or back-to-back days and the other half in the others, and they are separated, but it is not separated strictly by classroom.
Okay, thank you. I'll let other folks ask some.
Dr. Leon, do you have questions or comments?
Sure, I'll start with a question and then go to comments too. How are we doing with our nursing support, medical aides, people that will be attending to kids that may report some symptoms when they're there, and how does it look for? I understand there is a good plan. I think the public should hear a little bit about the plan of how we get the kids isolated, and then obviously call parents or guardians to come pick them up. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that would be going through the attestation process. So it is a requirement that every student goes through an attestation process on a daily basis. So this isn't, I can do it for the whole week. And so parents, and you've seen this and you've experienced this if you've been in small groups, or oftentimes if you've gone to see a medical professional, or maybe even gotten your haircut, right? There's 5 or 6 general questions that there's used as general screenings. And so students that show up on campus and have not gone through that attestation process, they will not be allowed to go into classrooms yet until we can verify that attestation. And just using this moment to talk globally, our secondary students will be able to, some of them will be able to self-attestate, and self-attest, if you will. And so the technology will allow that. We're starting that with our sports programs that allow them to do that. So then if they show any symptoms or signs, there is a dedicated staff and protocol to screen for that. And then they move into what we call, or not we in Tacoma, but what is the technical term, is called an isolation room. And that is designed to keep them until we can determine if there is a further need, or they can go get tested if they need to be picked up, but they are not going and sitting in a classroom today. So if I show up today as a student and I have the sniffles, it is very likely at that point that you would be moved to that process. Our healthcare providers, our health clerks, their backups, the RNs and the LPNs, those are all employees deemed that are considered working in a high risk setting, and they have been already moved and shepherded to be invited to be and receive their vaccinations if they so choose to. It is a voluntary process. We honor that's your personal choice, and we support that. And so they are working, and they have already, it started 2 days ago, just so you know how fast things are, through a voucher system. And now they have, forgive me, the official term's going to escape me. I want to say rapid something, which is a website that allows them to identify and then us to verify there. And so that's, I hope I answered your question about some of those practices and protocols. Every staff, every school, and when the superintendent talks about their safety plan, that is something that has to be verified, checked off. Dr. Tu Amen is our COVID supervisor. Those are all archived, those plans. In addition to that, each school has to have a plan on lunchrooms, as we've talked about, recesses, entering the building, exiting the building. How do we limit those those interactions with large groups as we go through?
I think it's important to note that our schools have been, kid friendly. So, you see the bear paws walking down the hall, and they're 6 foot, they're 6 feet apart. And so what I'm impressed about is, yes, they have a plan. And, when I talked about having staffing assurances, that's making sure that if the assistant principal doesn't show up, then is absent or sick or whatever, that we have a para that's identified to take their place. So there's none of this, what do we do? Because all those people have been identified.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's important, I think, for the public to hear that some of the details of this plan, and I know it's on the website, and each school has their own specific plan. So it has been very well thought through and thought out. I think it's also, I'm just going to review a little bit of for the public to understand why some of these recommendations have changed from groups like the American Academy of Family Physicians, American Academy of Pediatrics, studies from Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, Brown University. There's lots of data now showing that if schools practice the safe mitigation techniques and safety techniques that are recommended, the transmission rate is extremely, extremely low, less than 0.5%. So what the fact is that actually kids are suffering more now from being out of school from increased mental and physical health problems. So the mental ones are depression, specifically suicidal ideation, suicidal follow through. Our pediatric sections have always been pretty full, but they're overflowing. The wait list at the psychiatric units is it's the longest it's ever been in the history of that we've been keeping track of this. The wait list also to get pediatric counseling is super long. So kids are suffering from the mental piece. They're also, the abuse rates have doubled also at this point that we're seeing in our clinics and the ERs. So we are reporters, and when kids go to school, we prevent kids from being harmed. We know that most kids live in a loving home, but there are some that don't. I think it's important for the public to remember this as we balance there's never zero risk when you do anything, but we're balancing the risks, and it's way more on the side of being safer to have kids come back in this phased approach with all the precautions we're taking. So I think the other thing important for the public to remember is the equity piece of this, and that there are some families that are making remote work relatively well. They have maybe more affluent, have better internet, better computers, parents that have jobs that allow them to be home, or not everybody has to work, and have more support. So all those things help those kids and may feel more comfortable. And some of those people are staying, but there's a big chunk of our population, 50% or more, that don't have all those things, and those kids are not getting nearly the education they should get. So I think it's important to remember the balance that we have out there. So I will, just a couple more thoughts on that. The security is really, really high for health. I think there's some letters we've gotten and some comments that people think we're disregarding health. We're not disregarding health. It is the prime thing we're thinking about all the time for students and staff. And I'll finish with just saying a little bit of that, not the whole thing, but la seguridad de la salud es muy alta para nuestras escuelas, para la comunidad latina que quiere saber eso. Cuando usamos las seguridades realmente que tenemos como mascarillas, el chance de transmitir el virus es muy, muy bajo, menos de 1%. So I'll pause there and let the other directors have a turn. Thank you.
If I may, real quickly, President Cobb, I'd be remiss not to just articulate as well that then we didn't talk about it is all the required and necessary PPEs will be available both for students and staff on a daily basis. We will have regular cleaning routines that are in complete guidance of that. Students will be wearing masks. Those are the, in addition to social distancing and 6 feet separation. And so oftentimes, in some ways, it's really become part of our culture, right? We're wearing masks more and more every day. And so those are not, those are still very much in effect, and none of that guidance has changed as a requirement. So those will all be in place as well.
Thank you for that. Director Strozier, any questions or comments?
Yeah, I heard something in the barbershop, and I have to bring it to the board. I heard some folks talking, and my question is this: what if families decide that, okay, my kid is going to participate in Monday through Wednesday online learning as normal, but when it's time for them to go in the school building, we're just going to keep them home? The question, I heard that conversation happening in the barbershop. My question is, will there be grace for those students? We have about five, almost 6 months left of school. So say that is happening, and a parent comes to you and says, hey, I want to request some work for my student to do outside of the class or whatever makeup work. Will there be grace for those families that make that decision? Because it sounds like if it's talked about in the barbershop, that might be happening.
A couple of things. It's important to note that our teachers are not able to teach multiple modalities at the same time. There's been some great research out there about burnout and that, and we support that. We can't ask our teachers to teach one group remote and one group in live at the same time. So that's one thing that families should really understand, that they will not be able to access that live teaching from home during that time. Students are still required, if they choose a hybrid model, attendance is still a requirement in the state. We will still have to mark them absence in that. We know none of this is an ideal situation, but when we started this work, that's why we pushed so hard to create the Tacoma Online option for families. And each family has to make their own individual decisions. And what we tried to do is not place value or judgment one way or the other. But a family should understand that they cannot expect a teacher to create separate lessons for them with their time or give them additional work to work on. We're going to try to work with every family to try to meet their best individual needs. But we want to be very transparent that we're not in a place where our teachers are going to be able to create separate lessons while they're doing this, or be able to support those students if they're not showing up to class intentionally. There's always going to be something that happens during a student's life. We naturally have that. I may be sick for a few days and I can't show up. Those are different circumstances, right? I might even have a trip. We have prearranged absences for those circumstances. And so those situations will still be in effect.
I've had several parents, Director Strozier, say, we want to keep our remote. We don't want to go to online. We want to keep remote. And, why aren't you doing whatever district that's allowing me to have, a choice there? Where our choices were made at the beginning of the year. That, we've got over 3,000 students in Tacoma Online. And so that precludes us from being able to make now another choice about remote. Those teachers in remote are going to be going into the classroom. But we have said that if you want to make a switch to Tacoma Online, we will make an effort, to get you in an online program. The Tacoma Online option.
I know that we haven't gotten to Director Keating yet, but I just want to make a point on this topic.
I was just going to make another point. I wanted to do.
You go. You go.
I just want to, before we move off of this, I just think that what you just said, Dr. Garcia, is really important, and I don't know if it comes across as clearly in the communication on the website, that this transition, as we begin phasing into in person, I think people are used to what remote looks like right now, but I think we just can't make it clear enough that the face-to-face opportunity is now going to be in classroom. Your remote or your days out of school are not going to look the same as your remote days look right now. And I don't know if that is coming off as clearly to Director Strozier's point about people wanting to keep their kids on their remote days and keep them home on the days when they should be in class. I don't know if in your conversation with those folks in the barbershop, it was as clear to them as your teacher is not going to be face-to-face in the same way that they have been now. So I think we can't emphasize that piece enough about what the transition and phase in of time in buildings means for what their remote option looks like now at home.
And I would just add that we all recognize that this impacts different people in different ways and different families, and they all have their unique schedules. And this is a really challenging time. Yeah. Please hear us with the right intent. Is we're not trying to place value on one modality or the other. We recognize we're trying to help our kids and our families have options. Mm-hmm. And we recognize that they are the best ones informed to make those options. We have some limitations with those options, and so we're trying to be transparent. And I really appreciate your distinction, President Cobb, about that they won't have that opportunity And there's several reasons for that, and we will continue to make that as transparent as possible.
Thank you. Director Bombright?
Yeah, and my comment, thank you for that. That actually is really a lot clearer. My comment was really one about that this is a phased in approach too. I think everyone's thinking, oh my goodness, we're coming back tomorrow. Well, we're starting with the kindergarten classrooms and we're going to see how it goes. And it's going to be a slower process, and then first graders. And because they are the farthest from being able to manage online, and where it's longer for the secondary because there's a lot more independent workers by the time you're in middle school and high school. But it's going to be a while before we get there. And so I'm kind of encouraging everyone to take a deep breath and be patient and see how it plays out. And I know a lot of families have multiple children at different ages and different stages, which makes the choice complicated. But just think of each child individually about what their needs are, and I think that we're trying to take that into consideration too. And I know I've talked to Deputy Garcia about this several times, and he said it's really about the families and what's the best for these kids. And so Tacoma Public Schools is open. From everything I can tell, to working out individual issues. But it's really right now we're starting this slow opening with kindergartners who really need to get it for their social emotional health in the classrooms, and we're going to take our time and look at the data and see how it goes.
Dr. Bombright, Dr. Keating, you have comments?
I just also want to make sure that Director Strozier, did you have anything else you wanted to add? Okay. Yeah, some of my questions have already been answered. I know there was, Superintendent, you talked about like on days when staff would be out. And maybe I missed it, but did you also mention substitutes in that if we have a classroom teacher, how that would work in the cohorts?
So we'll use substitutes as we a teacher will call in and say I can't make it, and we will use them remotely. Now if they're we will use them to substitute in the classroom or remotely. If they're not available, then we'll have to we have actually more options than what we typically have. I don't know, Josh, have you talked more about substitutes?
Yeah, you hit the highlights, Superintendent Santorno. One minor subtlety that I would just say is Director Colette Stewart, way back in the fall, foresaw this, and we asked our substitutes to stay in set buildings. So we asked substitutes, instead of to say sign up for all the Tacoma Public Schools, we asked them to stay within 2 or 3 schools. And so we've really kind of even tried to cohort our substitutes in case they have to come on site to do so. So it's another option. What we're seeing, if hypothetically, if a classroom has to shut down or a cohort has to shut down, the plan is to transition to that remote synchronous learning again, and so that we're not shutting school down, right? Some of our neighbors had to shut schools down for power outages. We were fortunate where we only had 1 or 2 schools. But my point is there will be moments as we go through this where information will need to be updated. The change in modality may have to take place. But as far as substitutes, we've asked them to identify into cohorts where they can stay and not be exposed to multiple buildings. And I want to be clear, we've asked them to identify 2 or 3 at the most. It's not that they're assigned to one building only.
Thank you for that. And then I just have a comment, and I feel like this tends to get lost, particularly with the folks that are emailing us with concerns with this notion that that there's not been any students on our campuses or staff. And I think that I just want to acknowledge and thank the educators and paras, our building principals, and as well as childcare providers, transportation and nutrition service staff who have been on our campuses since October, and following protocol and serving our most vulnerable students. And I don't feel like they get as much acknowledgement as I would like to see from the community. So I just want to thank them sincerely for the work that they've already been doing in our buildings.
Thank you for that.
Thanks. Thanks, Director Keating.
I just have a couple of comments or questions. One goes way back to your earlier slides, Dr. Garcia. In it, when you talked about the 350 per 100,000 and the 14 days, you mentioned 6-day lag. Can you explain the 6-day lag and how that works? I'm a little confused by the 14-day calculation and whether it's a rolling in general, but can you say what the 6-day lag represents? And
Yeah,
what
so the state has a requirement that that when counties report their 14 days, that they consider a 6-day lag to address data errors, if you will. And I can't specifically talk to what are those kind of errors. And then what the general idea is that there's a buffer. And so when folks look at the 14-day counts, it is not the last 14 days, it's 14 days from 6 days ago. And so it can be very confusing, and I appreciate that. And it's hard, we all spend a lot of time talking about those things, but that's the general essence. So they gave a 16-day buffer. And so you often, even if you go to the Pierce County website, you'll say, this is our 14-day count, and here's our 14-day count without a 6-day lag. And right now, that number without the 6-day lag is lower. And that is your most recent 14 days. Our county has been very consistent and is in alignment with how the state reports their 14-day number. We have been very consistent. That is the number that we use as our beacon. We don't use, well, this week we're going to change it and want to use this number in our planning, right? It is always the 14 days with the 6-day lag count. Other counties have chosen only to do their most recent 14 days, but Pierce County Health Department has been since day one in the reporting in alignment with the state, and the Tacoma Public Schools has used that as the number that we make our decisions based off of.
Thank you. That was really helpful. And then with regard to the daily attestations, you mentioned Superintendent Santoro that you can do it on your phone and on the app, or you can do it in person. Can students use their Tacoma, the computers that were issued to do the attestation? Is that available on the computers? Okay. So
you have to be a certain age. You're really a high school student before you're legally able to do that attestation. I'm hesitant to say the exact age, and we can get that for you, but our elementary students cannot self-attest.
Okay.
And so, but yes, they can use their computers. And so if a family was driving up and they said, oh, I forgot to do that, they could pop open their laptop. Would the student have that? We're asking our students not to bring their laptops in the first 2 weeks. Please, that's probably a bad example. But as they move forward in the future, they will have that flexibility to do that. And we've had a number of public information out there. We've really been trying to encourage families to go online and try that out, make sure it works for you. As the superintendent mentioned, it's pretty intuitive as you get going on that. After you've tried it once or twice, it becomes second nature. And I really want to give an extreme shout out to our lead, Chalet Hobbs. She's done such marvelous work with this. But Director Jeff Ball, he is a gentleman that works behind the scenes in our data analytics team that creates this with his team. And they have been working really hard to offer this opportunity, and including several other platforms and opportunities. And so James Neal and a team of others helped develop this process, made sure it met the legal requirements, and that it was family friendly as much as we possibly could develop it.
Okay. And I actually had that in my little side note questions, and I was like, oh, I'm not going to ask that, but you mentioned it. What's the policy right now with regard to all the computers that were issued? You said we're asking students not to bring them, or is to bring them? Just because I think some students are like, I got my computer that I've been using this year and might be excited to throw it in the backpack. What are we saying right now about?
Yeah, I really want us all to be thinking, the team, all of us want to recognize that our kindergartners are coming on campus for the first 2 weeks. And we tried to create a space to make that as special as possible for them. They did not have that experience to start on a first day. And so we're even asking them to stay with their classroom teacher and really, build some relationships with some of their peers that they've never seen in person, that they've only seen online. And so yes, we've asked them to start with, please leave your computers at home, right? Because it is 2 days a week, and we don't want you on your screen while you're in the classroom those 2 days a week. We want you to be able to have more of a dynamic interaction in there. And then we'll grow from there. And we'll start to have students bring their computers on classrooms at different times. But for that first 2 weeks, we're asking all of our students, all of our kindergarten students, and some of our preschool students do have laptops. We'll be asking them to stop and just leave those at home to start with. Okay. To build those relationships, get into those routines. They haven't had a chance to figure out how to do lunch and recess. And I'm just ecstatic. And I want to echo Superintendent Santoro's comments about our classroom teachers, our paraeducators. Director Keating, you did a marvelous job of recognizing these folks that are going to welcome these students and say, yes, you're here, you're safe, we're going to do this together.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you for that. And then my second to last question before I comment. I know that this is data that's going to be hard to get a handle on, but do you have a general sense of, based on the number of our educators who are working in their job category because they're a nurse or a healthcare assistant or all those individuals who we were able to get in line for vaccines now, with that group of individuals plus the group of our educators that fall into that phase 1B2, I think, category, do you have a sense at this stage of what percentage of our educators those two groups represent?
Yes. In Tacoma, when you think about those two phases, 50 and above and below 50, if you were just going to use that as, forget about for a moment, put off those that work in a high risk setting. Yep. But straight numbers, don't quote me on the exact numbers. Stephen Dietrich and the team got them for me. But I want to say 53, 47, 54, 46, meaning 46% of them above the age of 50 and the other 54 below the age of 50. Then you have the complexities of who's working in a high risk setting that can go into the 1A category. And then Superintendent Santoro and myself are working with the health department on some innovative ways to say different partnerships to even be working those on there. And then there's some, and I'm gonna actually pause because I think Director Keating would like to talk about some of the work that she's been instrumental in that may change that as well.
Director Keating?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to share that, so as of most current update, there's a letter in reference to the phasing of when K-12 staff and childcare providers are also in that, which are partners with the district, so I don't want to exclude them. But in reference to having K-12 staff in these, I think they're called congregate groupings of 50 and above and 50 below. I think the thing with the phasing, there were unintended consequences with the decision. And so I've been really encouraged. I've spent a significant amount of time talking to state legislators and state partners, as well as local partners and elected officials, on how can we address this unintended consequences, because consequence of dividing our K-12 staff into these two congregates. So our state legislatures, the House Education Committee and the Senate Education Committee chairs, is a bipartisan effort, along with minority leaders, have sent a letter to the governor asking to have this issue addressed so that we can, for those staff that want to be vaccinated, to make that accessible to them. And the request in the letter from our legislator was to have that happen in the I think it's B2 phase, so that would be considered in February. So there's been a lot of conversation and investment in trying to address the issues that have come about by having these two congregate groups, specifically to the point that Dr. Garcia just made of the significant staff numbers that we have in those two groups. So and so I don't know if it will take an act of the legislature to fix this. I've heard that, but I'm not sure. But it is something that I am closely monitoring and in communication with Dr. Garcia on very regularly on this. So I'm hopeful, but it'll just take time. But it definitely is something that is being addressed just so that the public is aware.
The just a quick subtlety as well is, you know, there's only so much supply, and there's a lot of demand in Washington State. And so, you know, I think we were at a meeting today with Dr. Chen, and he did a very nice job of articulating some of the tensions around the supply and the demand in there. And then you know, one of the things that was helpful for me to hear was, you know, there's other variables also. It's just not straight age. Some of our employees or families work in multi-generational, or not work, live in multi-generational homes. That may move them up. They may have certain health conditions that may move them up. And so I was able to find the website that all of us should be monitoring, your loved ones use, which is called findyourphasewa.org. But if you just type in Phase Finder, Washington State, it'll give you some guidance of when you become eligible. And it's taken me a while to get used to it. So I would just say to you, don't say, well, it doesn't work for me, you know, come back and try it again. But we're not too in the county or in the state to even get to that phase 1B yet. There isn't enough supply. And then what we also heard is it is more fluid than just February, right? And so they're looking at how many of 1A has been met and can we start to do 1B, and so we'll work in collaboration with the health department to help try to demystify this, and then obviously to accelerate it as much as possible using our facilities, our resources. We've had some marvelous staff volunteer and say, let me help, and we'll try to find out how we can do that.
I don't, just as a follow-up on kind of the data around vaccines, earlier in your comments, you acknowledged that it is a personal choice and people can opt out of receiving the vaccine when they're eligible. Have you all polled staff at all just to gauge like the percentage of staff who, if a vaccine were available, are going to take the opportunity to be vaccinated? No? Okay.
We haven't had that opportunity yet. And, you know, I think that, and we've had these conversations with our staffs in the past around other vaccinations. That is a personal choice. And we as an agency have always honored that unless there's some kind of legal requirement to do that. And so our position has been is how do we get information to folks as much as possible, and so that they can make that informed personal choice.
I 100% agree with you and acknowledge that it's personal choice. I'm not saying that you should have asked or we should ask, but I do think that knowing even longer term into next school year, having a general sense of the percentage of staff who are vaccinated gives us a sense of how, like, COVID, I don't think it's going to just magically just disappear, but I think as we start to get comfortable with the idea of phasing in a return to school, I think PPE and social distancing are going to be our reality for much longer than people even still, because it's been over a year, but longer than people are, I think, realizing now, especially if the rate of vaccination isn't what it would need to be for us to, I don't want to call it achieve like herd immunity, because I don't know if that's the right terminology, but I just mean that this is going to be a long-term thing, I think.
Yeah. One subtlety to build, I think, on your intent is we have asked and are developing a process if employees receive their vaccination and they'd like to share that information with us, we're in the process of developing a system that allows us to collect that. So we had that with the measles and mumps vaccination. There was an opportunity, and so we're able to collect that information and store that for them. I know that in that situation, I couldn't find my own. I had to call my mom. She said, hey, I gave that to you 30 years ago. It's not my fault anymore. And then She was right. I found it in a box.
Yeah, I have mine in a manila envelope that my mom gave me when I left for college.
There
The
you go,
same
yes.
envelope. Okay. My last
Director
comment.
Sorry, go ahead. I just wanted to say that we appreciate Director Keating's efforts to get out there and advocate for this vaccination, but I also just want to really herald Chalet, Chalet, our nurse director, and Dr. Garcia. They have been on the phone and with the health department and with anyone, trying to look at private, at different private partnerships that we can get to get our teachers vaccinated if they choose to get vaccinated, and to get wiggle room with that age requirement. So big efforts in Tacoma and to have an effect on that.
Thank you, Superintendent Santoro, and thank you, Director Keating, and everyone on the team who's just been working since March nonstop. My last comment was just a reflection about something that you said earlier, Superintendent Santorno. You mentioned that the team is ready, and I 100% feel confident that our kindergarten teachers and schools are ready for the kids. But you mentioned that they've thought about every circumstance that could come up, and I 100% agree with the sentiment, but I'm more comfortable with the fact that generally we're good at getting better. I think that they thought of everything that they could have thought of that, like, it comes to mind, and we've talked through like meals and attestations and distancing, PPE. We've thought about a lot of things. I think I'm really comforted by the fact that we do have this continuous improvement culture, and people are going to talk to one another and share best practices and just keep getting better. So
I didn't at all say we've got it nailed down.
I know
we have really, and the other thing I really appreciate, and Dr. Garcia mentioned it too, is that we have had principals go to other schools and say, "Oh, didn't think about that. We got to go back and look at that." So, every day something comes up that we think, "Whoa, okay, how are we going to handle that?"
Yeah, I expect you to come back to us and
gotta go monitor those barbershops and figure out what they're saying out there.
I expect that those 5 things will be different from how you thought it would be, because people are learning every day. So again, we all, I'm sure, appreciate the work that you're putting in, and just look forward to slowly bringing kids back safely. So appreciate all the work. Any last comments from members of the board? Okay, we will move on. If I can just copy my agenda now. Okay, moving on to item number 7, consent agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
I'll move to adopt the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments about items on the consent agenda tonight? No, hearing none. All those in favor of adoption, say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion is adopted. Item number 8, policy matters. There are no policy matters tonight. Item 9, financial report. Presentations on the financial health of the district will be made during regular board meetings on a quarterly basis. The next quarterly report is planned for February 2021, and monthly financial statements can be found on the district website at tacomaschools.org/departments/business and finance/financial-reporting. Item number 10, curriculum and instruction. There are no curriculum and instruction matters tonight. Item 11, business matters. 11.1, approval of the interlocal agreement between Eastern Washington University and Tacoma Public Schools for the 2020-2021 school year.
The Assistant Superintendent, on behalf of the Executive Director of Secondary Education, recommends that the Board of Directors approve the interlocal agreement, contract number TSD 21-040, between Eastern Washington University and Tacoma Public Schools for college and the high school from January 25th, 2021 through June 30th, 2021.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt item 11.1?
I motion to adopt.
Is there a second?
I second.
Any questions?
Dr. Leon can second. Go ahead.
Any questions about item 11.1? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting 11.1 say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is adopted. Item 11.2, approval of the guaranteed maximum price GMP amendment to contract between Tacoma School District Number 10 and Course Mill Construction Incorporated for Downey Elementary School.
The Chief Operating Officer recommends that the Board of Directors approve the GMP amendment, which states the guaranteed maximum price on the Downing Elementary School project, and authorize the superintendent or designee to sign said GMP amendment in the amount of $31 million, excluding sales tax. Funding source capital projects bond as approved by voters on February 11th, 2020.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt item 11.2?
I so move.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments about item 11.2? Dr. Garcia?
Yeah, I just really want to take a quick moment to recognize Mr. Williams, Morris, Alicia, the whole team over there. Director Cobb, President Cobb, you probably remember a time where costs were escalating so fast, and there were no guarantees in construction, and we weren't getting projects in a competitive market, and we weren't able to be leaders and have equity goals in our construction projects, and we weren't doing these things. And starting with Superintendent Santorno's vision, I just tell you that Chris and Morris and Alicia and Tom Chalk and the purchasing department and Rosalind rolled up around that vision and has brought a fiduciary responsibility to these that still is leading edge in design and safety and security. And I just want to thank them and didn't want to miss this opportunity. When I saw that number of 31 million, that is not always how it's been. That does not go by just happens in circumstance. They led the design build process. They operationalized it. The work is staying in Pierce County. It's helping our county. It's helping our city. It's just a marvelous. So I'll stop there in my praise because Chris will probably owe me a steak dinner if I keep on.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, the work of the team has been like every time either Chris or Morris or any of the members of the team are in front of our partners at the city and Metro Parks, I'm always looking around the table like, don't be trying to recruit. So, so any questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor of adopting item 11.2, say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion is adopted. Item 11.3, approval of the interlocal agreement between ESD 112 and Tacoma School District.
Chief Information Officer recommends that the Board of Directors approve the interlocal agreement number TSD-21-026 between the Tacoma School District and the ESD 112 in Vancouver, Washington.
Motion to adopt item 11.3.
I move to adopt 11.3.
It's been moved and seconded.
A second. I see you, Director Leon.
Any comments or questions from members of the board? Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting item 11.3, say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion is adopted. Item number 12, other business, and there's no other business matters tonight. Item 13, reports to the board. We don't have any reports to the board tonight. Item 14, board comments and report. Because we haven't had any reports or much of opportunity to engage our student board members tonight, I want to start with our student board members if they're still hanging out with us. I can't see any of you, but I know that you're still there. But if you're there, I see Nathan's video popping up first. So I'll start with Nathan. Just want to check in with you if you have any report tonight, hear how things are going, any feedback on the items we discussed on tonight's agenda. You have the floor.
Yeah, absolutely. So just hearing about like all the processes and everything about getting students back into schools. I think that the board is taking a lot of good steps and, being very careful with everything. I like to hear that it's all based on a national study and everything. So that was reassuring, I think, to say the least. And yeah, I just appreciate that we can start going back to normal, even if it'll be a little while for me as a senior, if even. But I'm glad that the kindergartners and all the younger students can get to go into school. So yeah, that's my take on all that.
Thank you.
Hey, real quickly, Nathan, we want to let you know we're also working on graduation plans and graduation.
Oh, that's good.
So we're fighting for you and looking at creative options.
Thank you for thinking about that.
Well, I'll go on to who's just next in my visual. Jasmine, do you have any comments or report tonight?
Yeah, I just basically want to echo what Nathan said. It's reassuring to hear how well thought out this is. I will say I am still very nervous to go back to school, as I know some of my peers are, and as well some teachers, especially since a lot of people are so close to getting vaccinated. I know it's kind of frustrating, just timeline, but I am glad that we are pushing to get students back in school.
Thank you. Caitlin, it's good to see you tonight.
I'm so sorry for being late.
You don't need to apologize. It's great to
Yeah, so kind of similar to what Jasmine and Nathan said, I'm excited, like students are starting to go back to school, but yeah, it is a little scary because just like the risk of exposure, but I know like you guys are working really hard to minimize that. And like someone I know is a kindergarten teacher and she's just been saying how hard it is, so I'm glad that students are starting to go back.
Thank you. Indigo?
All right, I wanted to go back to the point that Director Strozier made about parents being concerned about, having that remote and not wanting to go in person. And I just wanted to make sure that since we are having a backup plan for the backup, that it's accessible for parents to be able to make that switch to the Tacoma Online. I know we made that choice at the beginning, but things are very, they're changing constantly. And I just want to make sure parents have that option to where if they aren't comfortable going back to school with that hybrid option right now, where they can go back to that Tacoma Online option. And another thing with sports starting soon, I understand that's going to be a modified version of that, modified version of what we would normally see. So with the 6 feet, and I just had a couple questions about, equipment, how that's going to work, because I know a lot of the sports in fall use equipment, and that's going to be something that's going to be difficult to navigate. I know it's going to be 6 feet. We're doing the indoor too. I understand that. So just really clarifying some of those for students who play sports and some of those families that still may have questions. I just wanted to vocalize that.
Thank you. Dr. Garcia or Superintendent Santona, can you speak to both the communication about options to move into the Tacoma Online program and then anything about sports to Indigo's questions?
I can talk a little bit about the online. I hear you, Indigo. And we are accommodating parents if they let us know right now. We're really working, but there will be a time when our online option is full and doesn't have capacity to take anybody else from the remote. So we really urge parents, if they feel strongly and they want their student in the switch to the online option, that they make that decision quickly. As we have some students that are switching from online to remote, so you can take one of those places, but we're not going to have, there will be a time when we run out of space. I think at Tacoma Online.
I mean, Indigo, just regarding the sports, so the governor came out with new guidance in January, and sports guidance is different than school guidance. So I would just end there. So what you and your colleagues may be experiencing right now is what we call small group conditioning. And so that's what started there. And that, yes, you were required to have 6 feet social distancing. Come February 1st, there is still safety protocols, but it will not be the same as 6 feet social distancing. Football players will be playing football in there, so they have to follow the same attestation. There's still the hygiene. You will be wearing masks at times, and if you're an athlete and you've ever had any of that training, you'll realize that. And in certain times, you won't be wearing that. And so what is also important to note, these are very consolidated seasons, 7 weeks, and that's a WIA rule. And so it'll be different, but in a lot of ways it'll be the same. So cross country runners, you're going to be running. And you guys know Nathan shaking his head is that can be very physical at the same time. And sometimes it is not 6 feet. And at the same time, you might have some staggered starts. And, you know, soccer players are going to be playing soccer and there. So it'll change February 1st. What the subtlety that I'm just going to remind everyone is that difference between practice, which then is really designed for you to be in a cohort, right? You with your colleagues and stuff, versus competition. And the numbers have to change as far as in the region, Pierce County region, King County region, and Snohomish. They have to drop down in order for us to enter competition with other schools and other school districts. So I'm encouraging all of our athletes to get ready. Start your training, use those conditioning things, take it serious, be ready to go February 1st, and train hard because that competition series will be very short in there.
I do have one more question. Going back to competing with other districts, are we going by our numbers alone, or do we have to wait for those other districts to meet their own individual benchmarks too? So will we just be competing within our own district? Would that be an option that we might have to look at?
Yes, that's a great question, Indigo. So right now the governor says that in order to reach that competition phase, the decision allows, I think they created 8 regions across the state, and you have to stay within that region. And we are in a region of Pierce County, Snohomish, and King County, thank you, as our region. And so we have to enter that phase 2. All 3 of those counties have to meet those thresholds, and there's multiple thresholds there. With that said, there is some unique ways that the athletic directors are looking at inside and reorganizing leagues. So I want to preview that maybe your league won't look the same as it has in the past. Maybe some 4A versus 3A competitions more regularly. So lots changing fast. This decision around sports was just made, I believe, yesterday or today, not today, yesterday or the day before. So you can see it'll continue to unfold. So I think I answered your question. It is by a region. It is not by a school district. And you will have to get some updates on numbers before you move to that competition phase. And you will be playing sports like normal starting February 1st with your practices.
Thank you. Dr. Garcia or Superintendent Santorum, I just want to loop back to this Tacoma Online question one more time, but just from a slightly different angle. Have we communicated? If I'm a parent, well, I am a parent of secondary students, the timeline for us returning is near term, and we haven't even put out there tentative dates for that yet. But if you're a family who still feels pretty hesitant about going back via the remote model, and like if you think ahead to May, if numbers only get to 250 per 100,000, will you as a family feel comfortable going back? What should secondary families who find themselves doing like the thinking ahead now in the place where they're like, oh, we might not be comfortable, should they too be trying to get on, should they be considering whether getting on the Tacoma Online list, or what kind of decisions should secondary families be thinking about making at this end of the semester if there's a potential of middle and high school students going back next, say, 3 months? What's those families?
It's a great question. And, you know, I think the semester, don't quote me on the exact day, second semester starts February 8th. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, we don't know those exact numbers and when those exact dates are, but families can see that we're starting to reopen, and not just in Tacoma, but across the state in there. And so if they are feeling like, you know, it doesn't matter if the number is 250 or 200, I still don't want to go back. And then, you know, this is the time where before that second semester starts, so you get a good fresh start in second semester in Tacoma Online, we're encouraging you to access that. It's a much more difficult transition when you're, you know, only 5 weeks left, right? You have to, it's a different curriculum, it's a different platform. Yes, we can match some things up, but it's a lot more difficult in midstream. And so when the superintendent encourages us to think about that, there is no wrong decision, right? It's your family's decision, but you really want to be thinking about that. And now with the numbers and the 3 phases of the charts, you can look at that and say, okay, well, if I'm a high school kid, it may be a while, but am I going to still be comfortable if the numbers are 210 or 195? Because that will be some guidance for you to make that individual choice. Middle school folks, you're likely to come back sooner. And so you're going to want to think about that. Elementary schools, obviously, there's flexibility. And the trimesters are a good time to make that transition.
So now I worked my way into a little more of an operational question. That was kind of conceptual before. So similar to what we had at the start of the school year, will there be a window of time again where it's kind of like not open enrollment, but is there going to be a window of time where we ask people to reconfirm their choice for second semester, or do we just assume that everybody's rolling in to the second trimester or second semester with the same choice that they've made for the previous?
The latter, and what we've been doing with in the superintendent's direction is we've been working families all along. So we give guidance, right? We'd ask that you stay in the trimester, right? But right now we're in the middle of the second trimester, and we have families with this new news that are saying, "I want to be in Tacoma Online."
Yeah,
we are not saying to them because we have room right now. We are saying, "Great, we're going to build those transitions, and we're going to start that process."
Okay, thank you. Any other? Oh, I'll move on to other comments from other board members. Director Leon, any report tonight?
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate the input and the participation of our student reps. We know that you have concerns, and it's just like a lot of other teachers and students and parents. But I think you've heard today, and you've seen some of the evidence from the data. We're taking this very seriously. I want the community to know that we've done a lot of planning, and as many of us have said, we will improve things that we find as we go. I want to just reassure everybody too that the vaccine is safe. So please get it when it's get it. I know that some people are worried because it's a new vaccine, but technology is quite safe. The majority of infections really do happen outside of work and school environments. They happen in people's home social lives when they're let their guard down. So school and work environments are some of the safer places once they have all the precautions in place. I think it's wonderful we're getting the sports going, and we've got them already going in some ways. The training, the formal sports, really it's a big piece for mental health for many kids. I think that you mentioned training hard. Yes, train hard, but train safely also, please. I want to see a lot of re-injuries, overuse injuries from people not training. That's my work side of things. Just be careful as you go and go slow, but work up to it. And then the other piece is just performing arts. I think it's important that we want to advocate for getting the performing arts going in some way. I know that there are people doing some of that remotely, but choir can't happen in a room because people can't sing, but maybe it can happen outside. Maybe bands can meet undercover. I don't know what that's being worked on, but I'd like to advocate for things like that. And hopefully clubs and academic teams have still been meeting remotely, but maybe they can do it also in a safe manner. There's a lot of just mental health piece, and also just learning that happens in those situations. So la vacuna es muy saludable. Por favor, todos, cuando te toca el tiempo para poner la vacuna de coronavirus, póntelo. Es muy seguro. Yo lo voy a poner a mis padres también. Thank you.
Director Strozer, any report tonight?
Yeah, real quick, I had the opportunity to stop by Mount Tahoma, as well as, Mount Tahoma last week, Wilson today, before our board meeting while they were doing their workouts. And let me just say that shout out to the athletic directors who are working to make sure these things are happening very smoothly, safely. Check-ins. I had to check in outside to go, and that's great. I mean, the students were in their element. Couldn't see smiles, but by the way they were out on Wilson's Field today. They were more than 6 feet apart. Obviously, there's so much space out there. But they were having fun and working out and staying away from each other. But it was just good to see that, you know, they felt great to be back on campus, back in school, close to the school. And you can see that they were really just enjoying that time together. So shout out to everybody who had a hand in putting that together, specifically the athletic directors, because I know it's a challenge to get these things going. So just my hats off to those folks and happy for the students to be back.
Thank you. Director Keating?
Yeah, I just had a couple things. I did want to mention, I know in some of our email correspondence from community members, and I've seen this also in other spaces where there's been either confusion or criticisms of the board continuing to meet virtually while students are being brought back in phased. I just wanted to just make clear again that we are governed by the Open Public Meetings Act, and this has been we are in the 21st iteration of the OPMA since March, since we shut down. And the current, and I believe that it's been since September that it is prohibited by the governor and OPMA for boards to meet in person until you're in a particular phase. But I know that some of the phasing and language has just changed in the last 4 months, so I don't want to add more phases into that. But I want the public to just understand that we legally aren't allowed to meet in person at this time. This current iteration of OPMA is set to expire on January 18th, but is anticipated to be continued. But it is something that we pay close attention to. So I just want to share that because I know that it can be confusing, and I don't have any expectation that the public would want to even understand OPMA. And so I just want to share that because I think it's really important if there is a perception that we're not willing to be meeting in person. And that's just not the case at all. So, and then I just had two kind of fun things, or what I think are fun things. I know that our career counselors have been making the rounds on Running Start to introduce Running Start for students for secondary. And I just want to give a shout out to Brandy Jennerson, who only because my kid was in her cohort yesterday around learning about Running Start. And so I know that our career counselors work really hard to support our students, especially our seniors, to get them across the line. So I just want to give a little bit of a nod to them. And then something really fun that I thought that I think is really cool that started this week, and I have to read the title so don't screw it up, but there is a finance and entrepreneur club that was just started this week by our former one and only Dave Jones, who used to be the AP over at Foss. So, and also the staff that are supporting this, I believe this is true. Brady Beaker and Chris Sieg. I hope I'm saying your names right, but it's such a cool program to help teach students financial literacy and investment, entrepreneurship. And so it's like, I just think is one of the coolest. As someone who's been a small business owner, like I'm really excited that this is an opportunity, and I want to thank Dave as being a community partner to help this happen and give this opportunity for TPS students.
Thank you, Director Keating. Director Bonbright, any reports tonight?
Sure, but first I had a question for Director Keating. Is that club open to any, age levels? So I'm sure there's people out there going, oh, let me in. And so do you know any more details about that?
I'm just going to be sitting behind my kid while she's in club to learn. So
Got it.
I don't know. I'm not sure, but I'll certainly ask Mr. Jones if, he can broaden his audience.
Okay, because now you get a lot of people excited, I'm sure, because it's a fun thing to do. So thanks for that. Well, been doing lots of things since our last board meeting, but I think since we're running super late, I will just mention one of them. which I'm particularly excited about, which is, and you've heard me talk about this before, it's JMAC, the Joint Municipal Action Committee here in Tacoma Pierce County, which is a group of elected officials representing their own elected bodies. So we have two representatives. It has been Andrea Cobb has been the vice president of JMAC this past year, and she is rolling off, and so Corey Strozier is coming on as the other director representing Tacoma Public Schools. So I'm really excited to partner with Corey on this great work. And because it's our turn to be chair this year of JMAC, they elected me to take that role. It would have been Andrea's had she stayed in, but she left because she's chairing this and a zillion other things. So so I got to inherit that role, which was very exciting. And our vice chair role, it goes to the city of Tacoma this year. And so Christina Walker will be the vice chair this year with me. And we're at tomorrow's meeting, as a matter of fact, plan is to actually adopt the proposal that the steering committee has put forward for the respondent to the RFP, and adopt that and start the process for getting our 6 months project going, where we have 3 goals. We're going to be going over JMAC's structure as a team to think about how all of the elected bodies in the greater Tacoma Pierce County area can work together to in concert and in sync, and think of new innovative ways where we can leverage the COVID crisis as a catalyst for change, and with a specific disrupt business as usual around how we structure and do service delivery, and really actually look with an equity lens at everything that we're all doing individually as governmental entities, and also just be creative about how we can take this opportunity to coordinate efforts. And then the second part of it is to develop a process for engagement of the entities in a plan forward. But anyway, we'll talk more about this in the future, but it's pretty exciting work. We're going to be pretty intensively trying to figure out how we can continue to work closely together in partnership for the benefit of all of the residents within our region. So looking forward to that, and looking forward to having Corey work with me on that.
Great. I don't have much of a report tonight. I think the only committee meeting I've attended since we last met was the Head Start Policy Council. I continue to really enjoy sitting and listening to the members of that council, representative of all of our schools that have pre-K programs or Head Start programs. So it's just neat to hear the questions that they're asking, the reflections that they're having on their students' experience. So I just enjoy tuning in. But my comment tonight is sort of related to parents and thinking about going back to school. I think early on in the pandemic, we were all extremely worried about the little kids, especially their ability to keep masks on all day, and just the challenge around that. But when I have had opportunities to be out in the world, like at Target or at the grocery store, even at the mall, these kids are good at it. And teenagers are serious about it too. So I just want to applaud parents and for the work that they've had to do to change kind of that part of our culture. They were unfamiliar to us when we started this, wearing masks. It was like the mask in my way, my glasses are fogging, but we've all adjusted. And I think a big part of the students' adjustment is their parents' commitment to and steadfast focus on making sure that their kids had a mask and leaving with the mask. Where's your mask? Where's your mask? It's like, where's your backpack? It's where's your mask? So I just want to give a shout out to all the parents out there who have done the work to keep their kids safe up until this point and help them build good habits around social distancing and wearing personal protective gear. And I just know that continuing to work together, we can slowly bring kids back safely. So I just want to, again, give a shout out to parents out there. Any further comments from members of the board? Superintendent Santorno, Dr. Garcia? Hearing none, I'll announce future board meetings. And we have our next study session will be Thursday, January 21st, 2020 at 6 p.m. Our next regular business meeting will be January 28th at 6 p.m. And then we'll meet again for our regular business meeting on February 11th at 6 p.m. That's my best friend's birthday. So shout out to her on that night, Tacoma grad. And so with that, I will call us adjourned and the board will meet for executive session for a short period of time. Thank you all for tuning in tonight and we'll see you on the 21st. Good night.